today's Tanya is Friday, the 19th of Elul, September 12th. Today is going to be the day where the Alter Rebbe is going to, I think it's one of the only places, the main place in the whole Tanya, where he's going to give a little bit of explanation of what the 10 spheros are in detail. So let's try to do it. Let's do our best. All right. Friday, page 83. Now, as regards the totality of the 10 sphirot as they appear in the soul of man, right? The 10 sphere, the 10, as we said yesterday, it's a great note from the Steinsaltz Tanya. I sound like an Avon lady. I'm selling the Steinsaltz Tanya, like Mary Kay representative, for the. Anyways, but the thing is that it is pretty good. We have the 10 powers that make up our soul, and the 10 faculties. And as we said, on one hand, though they are similar, they're in the image of God, meaning they are small depictions of the cosmic 10 Sefirot. However, of course, big disclaimer yesterday that it's not exactly, it's on a much more, crass level, but there is some similarity. So we're going to work with what we know. We know ourselves a little bit, and we're going to see the inner workings of our psyche, of our soul. And then we'll know a little bit about the God cosmic, energies. Okay. So it's known to all. It's known it says in a general way that the emotive attributes divide into 7 general categories. The 10 sephiros are made of 3 and 7. It's the division of 3 and 7. 3 is chabad, is the cognitive faculties, and the 7 are the emotional faculties. So we're not talking about the cognitive ones. That's not for here. This is the 7 emotional ones, because the 7 emotional are more the real energy of what creates existence. Because the ideas is more internal. When I think of something, it's not. It could be I could live in my mind, right? But in order to get it out, which is the idea of creation, is the whole emotional process, the flow process. Okay. Each of the particular attributes in man derives of one of these 7 attributes. For they are the root of all the attributes and their generality. In other words, so it's just the shines us like in colors. There are endless hues of colors. There's no 2 leaves that are the exact same color. However, there are only 3 primary colors: red, blue, and yellow. Red, blue, and yellow. Yellow is blue. Yeah, green is yellow and blue. I think. Anyways, the point is that these are the 7 building blocks of all the nuances of different emotional makeup everybody has. So let's talk about the 7 building blocks. Namely, the attribute of chesed. Number 1 is chesed. We've mentioned that a bunch of times. Chesed means loving kindness. Loving kindness, which is a thrust to diffuse benevolence to all the limits. Because remember, chesed is just a name. If you call it kindness, it's not really the good translation. It means benevolence, flow. Right? Benevolence is giving of self, is flow. You're extending your inner to the outside. You're giving of outside. And that's what chesed in the person is, the benevolence. I found something interesting. I only did a little bit of the Steinsaltz, but the Alter Rebbe, just give you a preview of how we're going to do this, is that the Alter Rebbe is going to arrange or explain the 10 spheros in 3 ways. One, this is important to know, because the first way is what we're going to go through, I think, today. The first way he's going to explain the 10 spheros in the Alter Rebbe is going to be the external, their outward depiction. So what does chesed look like on the outside? It looks like giving. What does gevura look like on the outside? It means like contraction. That's not the contraction. We'll get to that in a second.
Well, I just want to know what you said.
Contraction. Gevura is contraction.
Contraction of what?
of self. Another way of putting it, chesed is, gevura is going away from the peripheral and focusing on the center. It's being very, very, like a laser, being very, very judicious about what you're dealing with, what you're extending yourself to.
It's not an obvious. It's not an obvious linguistic.
100%. 100%. The language of the 10 spheros does not translate simply, because they're really
translate at all to me.
Okay, but the point is, you can't just say gevura is strength. That doesn't mean anything. That's not the word. That's not the technical definition that we're talking about. Right. Right. Exactly. Gas and brake. Good point. Chesed is gas. Gevura is brake. He said it's an example of focusing to the center. I I'd like to explore that. Gevura is focusing to the center of something. Chesed is spreading out all over. And whatever. Let's not get caught up. But anyways, the point is that he's going to explain the external depiction of the 10 spheres, the way they look like, the way they would appear. And then you have the internal mechanism of why they are. There's what they are, and then there's why they are. For example, chesed is benevolence, right? It looks like giving. Why do you give? What's the internal motivation of giving? Love. And so on. That'll be the second. He will explain it on a more internal mechanism level. And the third one, he'll explain, I guess, back to the cosmic, the way it is the way it is in divinity, not just in psychology, but in divinity, the way you love God, the way you're awed of God, and that type of stuff. I found that just interesting to preface. Okay. Chesed is a thrust to diffuse benevolence to all without limit. Chesed does not discriminate. Benevolence, you want to know? Yeah. Conferring good, giving good, flowing good to others. Amidas gevura, the attribute of gevura, which again, stern limitation and contraction. It's the Rishayinzal said elsewhere that gevura, why is the word strength? If it means contraction or kind of being judicious, why is the term, gevura? It was strength is a very generic word. It says all strength is about focusing to something. You can't do strength and be all over the place, right? If you're all over, you won't pick up this rock. Understand? So every strength is essentially a focusing of the benevolence to a certain outcome. So that explains the connection. So in the psychology of the person it seeks to restrain such a degree of diffusion or to withhold diffusion altogether from certain individuals, right? I'm not going to give myself to every person. I'm going to be much more. This is where I want to give. This is where I feel I want to give. This is where I don't feel it's deserved for me to give, of self. Then there's the third one, is the attribute of rachamim, of compassion. Compassion, as we said, a hybrid. It's to pity a person whom compassion is appropriate, even if he's unworthy of it. Very interesting. Rachamim, compassion, is the mediating attribute between gevura and chesed. It's number 3. The latter, chesed, of which would diffuse benevolence to all, even to a person to whom compassion is not at all appropriate. Right? A bleeding heart, giving everybody. I just want to get a real empath, gives everybody. You don't deserve it, you're going to do damage with it. I'm giving you anyways. Inasmuch as he lacks nothing and is no state of trouble whatsoever. Interesting note of the Rebbe. This departs from the typical translation of chesed. Usually we talk about chesed as giving to someone who's not deserving. Here it says someone who's just not in need. You give to a millionaire $1 million. Like that's chesed.
If you give to a what? A millionaire?
You give a millionaire charity. You give a handout to a millionaire, right? It's not really called for because they don't really need it, right?
Okay.
So that's like chesed. It's like undiscerning. It's like you don't need, take it anyways.
1 of 13.
I don't understand the point you're making, though.
It's not important. Let's move on for a working translation. The attribute of rachamim, compassion, is the mediating attribute. In the name, what's the technical name of the sefirot for the third thing is Tiferes. Tiferes literally means beauty. Why does
Splendor.
So I'm explaining. What is compassion? Why is it in the sefiros depicted by this technical term beauty? It seems a random hodgepodge. So by analogy with beautiful garments, which are dyed with many colors blended in a way that gives rise to beauty and decoration. To a garment dyed in one color, however, one cannot apply the term tiferet, beauty of harmony.
Can't have a single monocolor.
It's just not. It's probably a lot to talk. I mean, I have to look at the note. It's probably a lot to talk about why that is. No, because people, I think pink is beautiful, or a nice magneta, certain hue of color.
Yeah.
Why is only the blend is? It was interesting, actually. I was just listening to a class on a mimer this morning about a different topic, but it touches on it that the reason why true beauty is really a fusing of opposites. Is from a fusing of opposites. For example, why do you laugh at a joke? Because it combines random or unexpected worlds, right? The setup and the punchline. Meaning, for example, he said an example. If someone makes a statue of a person out of marble, chas v'chalil, or an animal. I think you do an animal. I think, whatever. Someone makes a marble depiction of a horse. Okay? A sculptor. And it's exquisite. It really looks, and it's beauty, and people are marveling of it. And then you show them the real horse, and they're like, okay, that's nice, but it's not nearly as breathtaking as the marble depiction of the horse. Right? Why is that? Why is art about the paint or the canvas or and look at the real thing? It's even more beautiful. It's more the real horse should be much more breathtaking than the marble depiction of the horse. Right? You get me?
Yeah, the painting versus a photograph, right?
Right. So why is it? Because there's probably many reasons. But my teacher was telling me this morning, was in the Zoom, was that because it's blending different worlds together. When you fuse marble, an inanimate thing, with the image, the lifelike depiction of a horse, it touches a place in the soul that has to make sense of this. It doesn't make sense. You see a horse, very nice. You see marble slab, very nice. How could those things come together? It doesn't make sense. It's two different kingdoms, an animate and an animal. How does those things come together? So what happens, it touches a place in your soul beyond the rationale, beyond the expected. And that could be why it's saying that Tiferes, real beauty, is a blend of many into one. It's not just that pink is beautiful and black. It's the way it comes together has to touch, or the arrangement is beyond just the colors that are there. Exactly. It touches a place that is...
Within art, they say you have to add the paint, but you have to know when to stop.
Right. Interesting.
So
So I think that's what it is. Again, I didn't have time to look at the Steinsaltz, but that's sort of... Anyways, moving on.
You said they got the wrong thing.
What?
You have the wrong thing.
Yeah. Afterward, once you have, now we talked the three. We have the three first of the Sefirot: Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes. In psychology, that would be benevolence, self-limitation, flow limitation, and then there'd be compassion. Afterwards, let's go to the next few. After the diffusion is realized, meaning at the time of the actual diffusion, when you actually want to start saying the poetry to somebody or giving the charity to someone, it is necessary to deliberate how to diffuse in such a way that the recipient will be able to absorb the effusion. You can't just say, I want to give $100 to somebody. Bam, here, what? How? It's not hitting the spot, right? For example, one wishes to convey, he gives an example. You want to convey an idea to your son, to a student, to a young student, right? You have an idea that's meaningful to you. You want to convey it to someone in your class, a young student, right? If you tell the student in its the idea in its totality, the way it is yours, the teacher in mind, you'll be the student, the son or a student will be unable to understand it, right? You're a teacher, Alan, right? You can't just say it the way you know it.
Pitch it in terms of what he understands.
So rather, one needs to arrange, it says here, continuing, one needs to arrange it for him in a different order and context. You have to arrange in a different order and context, right? You might have to do simpler words, second grade level, skip out some, say the main point, every word fitly spoken, presenting one side of the issue and the other. You have to steps, little by little. This deliberation, before you tell your young student the idea in your teacher mind, there's a deliberation in your mind of how to do it, how to break it up into steps that will be appropriate for the audience. This deliberation is referred to by the terms of the Sirot, Netzach, and Hod. Netzach literally means perseverance, perseverance, and Hod means, literally it means submission. But before we explain why it means those things, it gives a pretty interesting idea. And I'm going to have to cheat here to look. So it's called in the Talmudic language, just back up. If you ever saw a Kabbalah chart of the 10 Sfirot, a lot of times they show it by a human body, which is even more peculiar, right? It's like they show it like the head is the Chachma bin Adas, and then it shows the two arms depict Chesed and Gevura. The torso, I think it's Tiferes, and then the Netzach and Hod are the two kidneys. In the picture, they're the two legs of the person. What are two kidneys? Talmud says that the kidneys advise the heart with the good inclination or the evil inclination. It's interesting, right? Medical. In other words, the kidneys advise the heart. This is a very it's not a rational brain thing. It's a body thing. The kidneys advise the heart on how to relate to its feelings, how to act on them. It's kind of like the practical advisors of the heart, of the inner emotions. Like, how much should you love this guy and show it? How much should you show judgment on that guy? Whatever it is. Alternatively, another way they're put in Talmud or Kabbalah is the two testicles that prepare the semen, which begins as the drop issued from the brain. It doesn't mean the spiritual, physical distillation of the mind that goes into the seed. It doesn't mean that there's like a drop in the brain that comes down, like mucus into the spermatoza. But it's brought down. There's a spiritual kind of, let's say, genetic, epigenetic, origination of the seed of the father, and it goes through the process till it actually creates physical seed to, impregnate and create a child.
That's what Jacob was doing with the goats when he put the rods in front of their eyes.
It's probably exactly.
He was trying to do something to their brain so that they would breed in a certain way.
Right. So that is to say, let's continue. I'm sorry, next page, 86. The drop of interest in the brain, that is. So it's a little bit shorthand here that Netzach and Hod in the psychological workings of the person, right, is that they adapt the idea in the father's mind in such a way they'll not issue unrestrained, unmodified. That's meaning as a very lofty, subtle concept, abstract in the brain intellect. But this kind of part of the psyche, we're talking the psychological creative process, it will change it from the subtlety and the abstraction of the intelligence and make it less subtle. It won't say 2 + 2 is 4 to the 3-year-old. You'll show 2 apples and 2 apples. That's a much more less subtle, less abstract, and a more concrete depiction of an idea. And that he goes back to, and that's so the son can absorb it in his mind and understanding. This is truly analogous to the seminal drop which descends from the brain. It is extremely tenuous, and through the kidneys, meaning because the brain, we say the seminal drop in the brain is really a spiritual thing. When the brain creates the seed, it's through the kidneys and the testicles, it becomes concrete and corporeal, which is paralleling the idea of a concept. Right? You want to give over. I want to teach somebody. I want to, impregnate someone with an idea. I want to give them an idea. So what do? You have the idea, but you have to coarsen it up according to the audience. Concretize it up, which is a similar process. Netzach and Sahod are also referred to as grinders and millstones, because they grind the man of the righteous. I think this is referring to the 7 Rikim, the 7 skies. In the Talmud, it speaks of 7 skies. I think some of them are spiritual, whatever they are, but it says Netzach and Hod would be one of those skies in the sense they grind the manna of the righteous.
They grind the what?
The manna. It's like the source of the manna in the heavens. It's bringing together a bunch of sources about this concept. Let's go on, because I don't think we shouldn't get caught up on it. Just as a way of example, why is grinding wheat an example of the Netzach and Hod psychological process? A person who grinds wheat with millstones crumbles the fine parts. Back to the idea about the creative, communicative process. Idea is subtle. It goes to the even love and awe. You want to communicate that. You can't just do it the way. I can't show you the love the way it is in me. I have to take you into account. Right? We love Pesach stuff. We have to have the idea of love languages. There's an idea of love languages. You can't give someone love in the way that you like it. It has to be to the way they need it. So the idea of Netzach and Hod is essentially chopping it up and repackaging it to the receiver.
Yitzi, I don't mean to interrupt, but the parsha this week is very long.
Okay.
The Aliyah.
I know. Some days are just going to be.
Okay, so as long as you're aware, okay.
Yeah. Okay. But an example of chopping up wheat, grinding wheat, you're taking a chunk and you're making it into digestible portions. That's the exactly. It's all about the exactly. So too does the father need to taper the insight of the intellectual subject he wishes to convey to his son and divide it into many parts, relating them to him gradually with device and discernment. This is a teaching lesson, The category of Netzach also, it's a lot of random sidebars about Netzach, and we have to package it together. Also means literally prevailing and standing up against anything from within, without, that withholds from your son, your student, your audience, the transmission of beneficial influence or learning. In addition to the idea of the divvying up and making digestible parts of a internal idea or emotion in order to convey it to an audience, there's also another aspect that's needed, which is more germane to the language of the term, the technical term of the sphira. It's called netzach. It means prevailing, persistence. In order to get an idea from within you to the outside, there's a huge chasm between you and the outside. Your world is very different than anybody else, right? It's a very big chasm. Chasm is a big, empty space between. ESL word of the day. So in order to get it from a subtle idea or motion in you and to give it to someone else, you have to be very persistent. There's an internal persistence because you're literally doing a translation on a few stages to get it from your internal self to the outside. That's why it's called persistence. It stands up from anything on the outside, the inside, to give forth the flow, the benevolence. From within would mean resisting the attributes of gevura and tzimtzum up. Sometimes internal critics say, give a kid this idea, are they ready for it? Is it the time? Are they going to be successful? Right? A lot of internal breaks inside of you saying, hold back. Maybe don't teach your son this idea now. Right? It arouses within his will contentions against the son. You're like, the kid's not smart enough, not ready yet. He's not yet fit for this profound knowledge. There's an omission in the text. A note in the manuscripts, omission. It's missing a part. Some of the Tanya was from manuscript, so something was from manuscript for a bunch of years. When it finally got published, there might have been something missing. So just a quick thing. It's missing hod. Because netzach and hod are, again, they're like the two kidneys, they're two together. They concretize the subtle idea and emotion in order to convey it outside to somebody else. So we talked about netzach is necessary because it's the persistence to take the subtle into digestible steps, translate it, and then make it possible to go to another person. What's hod? What's the hod aspect of this? It's also about overcoming an act. So netzach it's interesting. There's so much to talk here, but netzach is if you actually do the sfirot. I wonder if I can find it online. Map of sfirot. Yeah, I'm going to show you just because I think it's useful to see this. Okay. I'm going to share my screen. And for all of you, you can either look here or just listen. A little bit.
I'm using Wikipedia over here.
Okay. Let me just show the window. What did I see? Chrome tab. Oh, there we go. I got it now. Sorry. Okay. So if you see on the screen, I'm sharing. It's a bit annoying. Gotta look at this. All right. So look at the screen. You see, we got here. If you want to take a look. Sorry, I'm making it up.
The body, right?
No, they're showing it on the body, the other depiction. So you see here, you have Chachma, Bina. Forget Chachma, Bina. We're not dealing with that. We're doing the Midos. You have in the right quadrant, you have Chesed and Netzach. Right? The left, you have Gevura and Hod. In the center, you have Tiferes and Yesod. And then the Shechina is the conveying, the receiver, is more the malchut, is the receiver.
What do you mean? Where do you see Shekhinah? Where's Shekhinah?
Look at the bottom. Look at the bottom, under Yesod, the last circle. You don't see it?
Okay, but in my diagram it says Malchut.
Malchut's better. That's actually better. It's better. Anyways, to understand that Chesed and Gevura and Tiferes is basically the internal awareness of conveying something, of giving something. Netzach Hod Yesod is the more, now we're getting, it's still internal, but it's about reckoning with how to get it to the outside. It's more the business plan, so to speak.
They call the whole thing the tree of life here in my
yeah. So Netzach and Hod, Netzach we said is really an outgrowth of Chesed. Because Chesed flow. Netzach is like the type A personality, assistant saying, let's get it out, let's let's chop it up, let's get it through, right? That's Netzach. Hod is also needed to get it out, but in a way it's more of a offshoot of the Gevura, of the contraction. What does that mean? Because Hod is not about conveying. It wants to convey, but it does another aspect. It's about standing firm. It sounds like Netzach is more type A, and person like let's get it through. And Hod is the part that's needed to is to be like, Hod means splendor. It actually more submission to the mission to get it out, right? I will get it out. I'm standing firm in the decision to get this idea conveyed to the child. Netzach is already more about is the doer. It's like we gotta move. We gotta. Hod is the part. Yes, we have to do it. We have to stand very firm. When all the obstacles, internal, external, come, we're going to stand very firm. Understand? It's two sides of the getting something out. It's Netzach, but also Hod also says in the Steinsaltz, we're missing in the original Tanya what he talked about Hod. It says there's an omission here. So Hod is right, it's missing. A detailed and separate explanation for Hod Netzach and Hod is not necessary as much as Ches and Gvura because okay. I'm just reading here very quickly. Okay, whatever. It's a lot to talk about here, and we're just going to go back to our inside. But anyways, the main thing to think about is that Netzach, the reason Netzach and Hod are spoken together as one, it's maybe missing a few lines, but it's not. Chesed and Gevura are really different things. They work together. They're always together. You cannot have love without awe. There's no such thing. There's law without respect, without boundary. It doesn't work. At the same time, they're treated with very different explanations, right? So, but Netzach and Hod, he says, conversely, are spoken always together as one, because really Netzach and Hod are together. They're the same mission. It's about getting it out. There's just two aspects of how you get something out inside you. How to get out. You got to be persistent, and you have to be firm in the decision to get it out. Make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. Continuing, the sixth of the midos are the category of Yesod is by way of example, the bond which the father binds his intellect, the intellect of the son, while teaching him with love and willingness, for he wishes the son to understand. Without this bond, even if the son would hear the very same words from the mouth of his father,
let's say the father's learning himself out loud, and he's learning it like he's like learning like this. I'm going to teach my students tomorrow, and the son, who's a student, also is overhearing it. There's something missing. There's that human contact, right? Eye contact, or like I could let's say I prepared my Tanya better than I did today, and I would over and I'm saying it out loud. I'm over there in my place. I'm saying it out loud, and it's the same thing I would say to you now. Let's say it was the same thing. Would you get it as much? Why not? It's the same thing. Because what happens is that when you size up your audience, there's a last minute repackaging that really takes the consumer into account. Meaning, even Netzach and Hod is about taking the consumer and the audience into account. When I see the audience, when the curtains open up and I see you, there's like almost like a last minute revision to give it even better. And why is that revision coming from? What do you mean? I revised it for days. Right before the audience, it's revised even more. It takes a second, 10 seconds.
I have a fellow.
Wait, let me finish the thought. And this is because his father, the teacher, would bind his intellect to him and speaks with him face to face with love and desire, because he desires very much the son that understands. In the holy writing of the Tzemach Tzedek, it says these words are not found, whatever. And the greater the desire and delight of the father, the more love to the student. The teacher has to the student, or the father to the son, who's the student in this case. The greater is the influence and the success of the teaching. Because then the son is able to absorb more and the father communicates more proportionally. For through the desire and delight and with a contented disposition, his own insight is heightened and amplified so he can bestow enlightenment upon his son and teach him. Basically saying there's the love and desire. There's an intellectual teaching a student, which can be very, very talented. But if I don't have a love for the student, a love for the teaching, a love for the student, it can only go so far. It can only be a repackaging of my more subtler form of idea. But when there's love there, first of all, two things happen. First of all, I'm even more in sync with the audience. And I even give more ideas or more aspects of the idea implicit in my conveying my original plan of idea. This parallels, to draw a metaphor from the attribute of Yesod in the body, the sphere of the truly physical, the perfusion, meaning it's the reproduction organ of the person. The perfusion of where the spermatozoa comes from, that results from heightened desire and delight, through which is elicited from the brain. This is why you might be a little bit like, this seems inappropriate for like a spiritual depiction. Why they should make a chart? Why they have to compare it to the human body? We didn't get into it so much, but I said that the head is the Chacham Min Hadas, the right and left arm is Chesed Gevura, the torso is Tiferes, the testicles or the kidneys are Netzach and Hod, and the reproductive organ is Yesod. And the Malchut is more the feminine, is the receiving of the male flow. Come on, like they had to go so physical. That's why they did
Why
it.
is Kafar you're going to call it the Shechina though? That's interesting.
I'll explain it later. It's not. They shouldn't have done that. That was not. I don't know why they did that. Malchut is more correct, but Shechina is interchangeable with Malchut. It's just a different language.
It's significant.
The Kabbalists use the analogy of a physical union, right, to explain God's creation. It's a physical sexual union. Like it's very like what, because there is a lot of parallels. Obviously, disclaimer: the human being is a much more crass, concretized version of the abstract idea of this union, but it is some sort of depiction. Now, these emotive attributes are external aspects of the soul. Within them are okay. So till now we explained the way the 7 emotions, attributes, they appear. What's their inner attribute? What's the inner motivation? What's the inner working of kindness and contraction? So he goes through it again. at least a little bit, the faculties of love and awe. This may be compared to the case of a father who bestows enlightenment upon his son because of his love for him. Why do you be kind? It's very interesting. We don't have to talk. I mean, it's a tragedy with Charlie Kirk, right? But one of the things, I didn't really follow him too much to know what he did, but apparently he did a lot of, did some good in the world and really, taught kids and young people stuff. But interesting is he said that someone compared it to every school in the public school say be kind. Be kind. Okay. Why should be kind? Because you should be kind. Meaning we're saying kindness inside the person, the benevolence. What's the internal motivation? It's love. Love is a much more eternal thing than even kindness. Kindness already is the manifestation. And holding back, reverence is coming from awe. Anyways, and if you love the son, then you want to give him so much, but your fear of losing, of hurting him or embarrassing your son, not getting it, you'll withhold your influence because of his dread and fear that if he gives the son doesn't get it, it'll be embarrassing. It'll be some sort of downfall, God forbid. Whatever. He doesn't go into all the other ones because everything else is really just an offshoot of love and awe, love and fear. The source and root of these, now that's the second quick depiction. The way it is internally, very short. The source and root of these internal, external motive attributes, right, is the chabad of one's soul. For a person's emotive traits are in proportion to his intellect. This is empirically evident with a child, for example, whose chachmin adat, wisdom, knowledge, understanding, whatever, are in a state of pettiness. And therefore, kids with this very small brain, small, awareness of what's good and bad. So all his emotional traits are very petty. I want candy. I cry if I want candy. With adults too, everybody has an emotional reaction based on their intellectual perception of reality. A person that lives in the world of just, let's say, hedonism, they love pleasure and they hate displeasure. Someone who's a more refined person is they hate evil and they love good, type of thing. It all goes according to the extent of your wisdom. And all his other internal, external traits, right, chesed, gvura, tferes, netzachod, are all going to have their source in the chachamim and dat. Most important, he mentions, by the way, is dat. Chacham and bina is very, very abstract. Dat is your intellect, where it's already it's not emotion yet, but it's already what's the logical relevance of this idea? The logical relevance, right? Dat, they say the proper translation of dat is relevance, because you could have intuition about something, you can comprehend something, but what does it do with me? The idea is objective. It's totally not dependent on me. I'm just housing it. I'm harboring it. The second, it becomes personal. That's dat. That's relevance. This is readily observable for the differences between the emotive traits of various people correspond to difference of the respective degrees of dat. Okay, so that was it was long today, but this is you're getting good bang for your buck because this is a huge topic all over Hasidism, and now we have a working knowledge of the 10 Sefirot and how they appear in